Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is the attitude of the White House towards Israel. Israel is not a banana republic, and yet in many ways the United States is treating the Jewish state as if it were. All along Pennsylvania Avenue, from the White House to the State Department to the Defense Department, American officials, elected and appointed, are convinced that they know what is best for Israel, that they know better than Israel. They do not. One can disagree with the leader Israelis elected to serve as their prime minister. One can disagree with how he cobbled together his coalition. One must always remember that Israeli elections are democratic elections, and no one can honestly deny that it was a fair election and that it was an unquestioned election. It was a democratic election where democracy was at work. And just because one disagrees with the victor, do not try to paint them as a non-democratic environment. Israel must do what is in Israel's best interest. Israeli leadership will act to secure its citizens in the here and now and for the future. It doesn't matter who the leader is, be it Netanyahu or anyone else. And it doesn't matter what the White House strongly suggests or urges or pressures diplomatically. To think otherwise is simply folly. The United States and Israel have been friends since the creation of the Jewish state in 1948. And giving cover to Israel at the United Nations and in the international community is the right thing for America to do. It is strategically, morally, and ethically correct. Other countries should be supporting Israel, as many did at the beginning of Israel's war with Gaza, just after October 7th. But as the days ticked by, some countries lost patience with Israel. The United States should never be added to that list. The United States should not be pressuring Israel to stop a war it did not want. If stopped now, will without a doubt result in the deaths of thousands more Israelis. Here is the axiom in Israel's decision-making process. Israel will not stop until they are 100% convinced that Hamas will not perpetrate another massacre. Israel will not stop short of that goal. That is why Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected the Hamas proposal for a ceasefire which keeps Hamas in power and standing, and why he rejected earlier proposals, and why he may very well reject future proposals that favor Hamas. The diplomatic world understands that it takes time and effort to achieve real change, except when it affects the Jewish state. For some mysterious reason, those same people believe that with the snap of their fingers, very difficult objectives, like defanging Hamas, can be instantaneously achieved. The President of the United States ended a phone call with the Prime Minister of Israel by saying, quote, "This conversation is over," unquote, and hung up. And it was, for about a month, the two who until that moment spoke almost every day did not speak. And now that they're speaking again, what is the President suggesting? He's suggesting that Israel double-check and rethink the targets it's hitting. That's called chutzpah. The White House is now telling Israel it's time to scale back. That's the expression being used. Telling them in person and on the international airwaves. Why? Because the U.S. needs the international community to witness that they are attempting to rein Israel in. And so, speaking on CBS's Face the Nation, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said that the United States has been speaking to Israel, quote, about a transition to low-intensity operations, unquote. Then Kirby continued, quote, "We believe it's the right time for that transition, and we're talking to them about doing that," unquote. Israeli intelligence and military leadership disagrees. The United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin warned Israel of, quote, "a tactical victory with a strategic defeat, unquote, if Israel failed to protect innocent civilians. He said it would, quote, risk driving them into the arms of the enemy, unquote. Austin was thinking only of the innocent Palestinian civilians that Hamas cares nothing about, not the innocent Israeli citizens that Hamas so enjoys massacring, raping, burning, and taking as hostage. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke forcefully at the COP28 climate summit in Dubai and said too many innocent Palestinians have been killed, and added international humanitarian law must be respected, which in truth is just what Israel is doing. And in a meeting with Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Harris said, and I'm quoting again, under no circumstances will the United States permit the forced relocation of Palestinians from Gaza or the West Bank, the besiegement of Gaza, or the redrawing of the borders of Gaza, unquote. These are dictates, not suggestions, nor counsel. The goal, and they all know this, is for a situation in which Hamas is no longer able to threaten Israel and Palestinians are able to govern themselves by duly elected leaders for whom the golden path does not lead to terror. That's what Israel's friend, the United States, should be working towards, not towards their other agenda of ousting the sitting Prime Minister of Israel, and certainly not in the midst of a war that threatens the very existence of the country he leads. Israel is not a banana republic. Remember that. Treat the Jewish state's wartime decision-making with the respect it deserves. Coming up next, points of view. First up is a column from the Wall Street Journal published on January 17, 2024. It was written by Yossi Schneider. Yossi is a cousin of the youngest Israeli hostage, the adorable little redhead named Kfir Bibas, who just turned 1 year old, while still a hostage in Gaza, still in Hamas captivity. After the column, I want you to hear a very touching song that was composed for Kfir's first birthday. The column is entitled, My 1-Year-Old Cousin is Hamas's Hostage. Subtitled, We don't know if he, his brother, and their mother are alive. Dateline Cholon, Israel. This is how Kfir's cousin Yossi begins. My cousin Kfir Bibas was born a year ago Thursday. I should be watching my own children dance with him as he takes his first stumbling steps into the world and has his first taste of birthday cake. My youngest is the same age as Ariel, Kfir's brother, a happy child who is always trying to make others laugh. Instead, we're mourning the absence of Kfir, Ariel, and their mother and father, Shiri and Yarden, all of whom Hamas took hostage on October 7th at Kibbutz Nir Oz, which the terrorists transformed from an oasis into a smoldering hellscape. They murdered Shiri's parents in cold blood. We believe Hamas marked Shiri and Yarden's family for kidnapping long before its invasion. Nir Oz employed Gazans without suspicion, and Hamas used them to spy on kibbutz families and map out who would make fitting hostages and who should be burned inside their homes. Hamas knew that capturing Kfir and Ariel, two sweet red-headed children, would make for a devastating and demoralizing propaganda. The terrorists separated Yarden from his family, and in November told him on camera that Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir had been killed in an Israeli airstrike. But they've provided no evidence, and we believe they are still alive. Along with well wishes I've received, there are some who want us to stop fighting to save our family. There are those who call for the unconditional ceasefire in which we forsake their lives, and others who think that if we stop the war through negotiation, Hamas will send my family home. Kfir, Ariel, and Shiri were supposed to have been released in that last deal, but Hamas broke its word. Now my country is on trial at The Hague for war none of us wanted to fight, while my family's captors and murderers are painted as resistance fighters. Advertising agencies in the Netherlands are refusing to rent billboards to the Israeli government to show the faces of kfir and other hostages. The world has never lacked for people who hate Jews standing up for themselves, and others who wish we would die quietly. I promise we will never stop fighting for kfir to come home, along with all the hostages, and that his release day will finally be his new birthday. We cannot possibly even come close to imagining what the families of hostages are going through. Israel is enveloped with nervous energy, racked with worry over the fate of the hostages, their loved ones, and living with the uncertainty. No one knows what is happening to these Israelis taken hostage. No one knows what's happening to Kfir, Ariel, and to their parents, Shira and Yarden. Now the song. This song made its debut on Kfir's first birthday. It plays on the radio and is all over Israel. The title of the song is They Call Me Gingy. Why Gingy? Because Kfir has red hair, and Israelis lovingly call redheads Gingy. His brother Ariel is also a Gingy. The name Gingy is common in many languages for redheads. In English, the redheaded girl is often called Ginger. It's all based on the color of the ginger root.
קוראים לי ג'ינג'י, נשארתי מאחור, אומרים אני גיבור, אני לא יודע למה. קוראים לי ג'ינג'י, את זה יודעים כולם, אפילו בעולם, אני לא יודע למה. כשאני צריך חיבוק גדול, אז אמא כאן איתי, מטפס עליה, רוצה על הידיים.
היא עוטפת מרגיעה ואומרת שנדע שהלב שלה מלא באהבה. משחקים פה את משחק השקט, אני עושה פרצוף ואמא מסמנת בידיים. בסוד לוחשת לי, אתה אהוב ליבי, שומרת עליכם פה שתדע.
קוראים לי ג'ינג'י, נשארתי מאחור, אומרים אני גיבור, אני לא יודע למה. קוראים לי ג'ינג'י, את זה יודעים כולם, אפילו בעולם, אני לא יודע למה.
מצייר ציור של לב, אמא למה את בוכה? תני לי את היד, אהיה כמו אבא.
לא תמיד מבין הכל, אני כל כך רוצה לשאול, חולם לי ומיד שומע קול.
כולנו ג'ינג'ים, נשארנו מאחור,
אומרים שהוא גיבור,
הוא לא יודע למה. אנחנו ג'ינג'ים, את זה יודעים כולם,
אפילו בעולם,
אני לא יודע למה.
כולנו ג'ינג'ים, נשארנו מאחור, אומרים שהוא גיבור, הוא לא יודע למה. אנחנו ג'ינג'ים, את זה יודעים כולם, אפילו בעולם, הוא לא יודע למה. ג'ינג'י,
קוראים לי ג'ינג'י.
So touching, so moving. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. Rather than cartoons and memes or headlines today, I want to share 3 quotes with you. These quotes have made their mark on history, and as have statesmen to whom they are attributed: Winston Churchill, Harry Truman, and John F. Kennedy. This first quote is from Winston Churchill. The British leader is setting forth his goal for World War II as he delivers his first speech to the House of Commons as Prime Minister. The date of the speech was May 3rd, 1940. And Churchill said this: "You ask what is our policy? I say it is to wage war by sea, by land, and air, with all our might and with all our strength that God gave us to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer you in one word: victory. Victory. Victory at all cost. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival." Thank you, Winston Churchill. This could not be a better explanation of Israeli policy in action. Our next quote was a response in letter form from Harry S. Truman, President Harry Truman, to Mr. Cavert about the use of the nuclear bomb. Samuel Cavert was the General Secretary of the National Council of Churches of Christ in America. And the letter begins, August 11th, 1945. "My dear Mr. Cavert, I appreciated very much your telegram of August 9th. Nobody is more disturbed over the use of the atomic bombs than I am, but I was greatly disturbed over the unwarranted attack by the Japanese on Pearl Harbor and the murder of our prisoners of war. The only language they seem to understand is the one we have been using to bombard them. When you have a deal with a beast, you have to treat him as a beast. It's most regrettable, but nevertheless true. Sincerely, Harry S. Truman." So typically Truman, so apropos of today. And now finally, the last quote from John F. Kennedy, who at times was not president. This time was not president at all when he gave the speech. The speech actually, the quote comes from a speech delivered by Senator Kennedy in New York while speaking at a dinner of the ZOA, the Zionist Organization of America. The date of the speech was August 26th, 1960. John F. Kennedy addressed the room and said the following: "For Israel was not created in order to disappear. Israel will endure and flourish. It is the child of hope and the home of the brave. It can neither be broken by adversity nor demoralized by success. It carries the shield of democracy and it honors the sword of freedom." Unquote. Kennedy truly encapsulated Israel. These leaders understood what Israel stands for and why Israel was created. What was true then is true today. If only we were blessed with statesmen like these today. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. The IDF released information, videos, and pictures of one of the many tunnels they have discovered and destroyed in southern Gaza. The tunnel's entrance was in a house in the residential part of Khan Yunis. The tunnel was booby-trapped, and Israeli soldiers engaged in close hand-to-hand combat with the terrorists before gaining entrance and clearing out the tunnel, in which they were also fighting hand-to-hand. The tunnel was nearly a half a mile long and nearly 30 feet below ground. Images released by the IDF showed that the hostages were kept captive in cages. One of the items found inside was a child's drawing, a 5-year-old hostage girl's drawing. The picture depicted a house and the sun shining over rolling mountains. Some 15 million shekel found by Israeli troops in the homes of command centers of Hamas terrorists are to be transferred into Israel's accounts. In total, troops found cash valued at 20 million shekel, including Iraqi, Jordanian, and Egyptian currency, as well as $1 million US. That's $7 million total, probably. The US, Egypt, and Qatar are pressuring Israel and Hamas to enter into a diplomatic process that will begin the release of hostages and lead to the withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and end of the war. This information comes from diplomatic officials involved in the mediation between the parties who spoke with the Wall Street Journal. According to the report, neither of the parties agreed to the terms of the proposal, but sources familiar with the talks said that there is an agreement on the part of Israel and Hamas to at least hold discussions on the issue, and that the negotiations are expected to continue in Cairo in the coming days. According to one of these sources, the willingness, this is a quote, willingness of the parties to discuss the framework is a positive step, unquote. The mediators are working on bridging gaps. Meanwhile, the White House continues to push for a ceasefire to help deliver food and other humanitarian aid, and says that the release of hostages is a priority. Iranian President Raisi has been taking to the airwaves and talking to the press about his displeasure with the United States. Imagine that. According to the official Iranian news agency, IRNA, Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi condemned U.S. airstrikes on Yemen, saying the strikes revealed what he called the true aggressive nature of the United States, and taking it a step further in a phone call with the head of Yemeni's Houthi Supreme Political Council, Mahdi al-Masha, Raisi said that Iran's principal stance is the support of defenseless Palestinians. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, speaking at a news conference in Cairo, announced that Beijing has called for an end to attacks and harassment of civilian vessels in the Red Sea. Yi delivered his message following a meeting with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and without specifically mentioning the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah delivered a speech during which he said that, and I'm quoting here, the Americans threatened Lebanon that if the southern front is not stopped, Israel will start a war, unquote. According to Nasrallah, another quote here, quote, Washington's intimidation will not help, neither today nor tomorrow. The one who should be afraid of war is Israel. We have been ready for war for 99 days and not afraid of it. Nasrallah also said that the United States should understand that the situation in the Red Sea and the development in Iraq and Lebanon all depend on stopping the war in Gaza, and that U.S. attacks in the Red Sea will harm all maritime traffic. Former Shin Bet chief Yaakov Perry repeated the statement made by Ronen Bar, current head of Israel's Shin Bet, the security agency, that he would step down from his post after the war. Bar spoke about stepping down soon after the war broke out, saying that he was accepting responsibility for his organization's failure to foresee the Hamas October 7th massacre. The chief of staff and the head of the Mossad did the same. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is yet to accept responsibility for his failings. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. Today, a song, a duet, written by a young woman named Yonina. Yonina is, of course, a songwriter, an Israeli, a mother, a wife whose husband is in the IDF reserves, serving in Gaza. In this sweet song, Yonina and her husband, in their duet, share their feelings about the national crisis and about how families are being ripped apart, separated for weeks and even months because of the war with Hamas.
הייתי בדרך לבית כנסת כשעלית על מדים ובפינת הרחוב נפרדת ממני ומהילדים הסברתי שאבא עכשיו צריך לשמור ולא רציתי שידעו ממה ובדרך אנשים שאלו מה אתם עושים בחוץ, פרצה מלחמה. אז עכשיו אני אוספת את כל הכוחות של חסד ושל אמונה, שעוד יבואו ימים של טוב, שעוד תשוב אלינו הרינה, ומחבקת חזק את הילדים, רק להגן מהסופות שבחוץ, ובתוך הטירוף מול שמיים שחורים, מלקטת כוכבים.
בלילות הראשונים לא ישנתי, דרוך על המשמר, חתמתי על ציוד בעולם מקביל, נפרדתי מכל מה שמוכר. יש כאן אחוות לוחמים בימים מתישים, מבלי לדעת מה יהיה מחר. שבועות כבר עברו חודשים, ובכל זאת נשארים עד שהאופק יואר. אז עכשיו אני שולח לך ים של כוחות, של חסד ושל אמונה, שעוד יבואו ימים של טוב, שעוד תשוב אלינו הרינה. אז תחבקי חזק את הילדים, רק להגן מהסופות שבחוץ, ובתוך הטירוף מול שמיים שחורים, מלקט לך כוכבות הגעגוע אליך, ולמרות שקשה כאן לבד, לפעמים כדי לנצח ביחד צריך לעמוד בנפרד,
כל אחד בחזית שלו,
עד הניצחון.
אז לעכשיו אני אוספת את כל הכוחות של חסד ושל אמונה, שעוד יבואו ימים של טוב, שעוד תשוב אלינו הרינה, ומחבקת חזק את הילדים, רק להגן מהסופות שבחוץ, ובתוך הטירוף מול שמיים שחורים, מלקטת כוכבים.
Songs, like stories, can be truly inspiring. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.